back to my YouTube channel. So I thought I would do my video today about the first subject, which is mental health. So ignore my no face of makeup. Don't really often wear it these days. Being as we're in lockdown, what is the point? I've actually washed my hair for a change. So yeah, for once it's not greasy. So today I actually feel like I'm winning at life. I've got changed, I've got clean hair. So yeah, all good. And I've eaten today, which is great. So I wanted to talk about mental health. Before I had my little boy, he is now 8 months old, or just over 8 months old. Before I had my little boy, I never really suffered with anxiety, depression. I kind of, if I'm honest, didn't really understand it. Every time that somebody go, oh, I'm really anxious, I'd be like, oh, snap yourself out of it. Don't worry about it until it comes, till it happens. You're worrying over nothing. Blah, 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 blah. And I had sympathy, but I didn't quite understand it fully, I guess. Yeah, so I never suffered with anxiety or anything before. During my pregnancy, I didn't really have anything go wrong as such. It was quite a plain sailing pregnancy. I had a few anxious feelings, but I think as a first time mom expecting a baby, that was probably quite normal. I guess it wasn't until our little boy was here that I kind of started to feel a little bit different than I normally have done. A lot of people around me, like friends and family, were like, oh, it's just baby blues, you'll be fine. I was getting to that point where especially when my partner had gone back to work, that I was crying every day, to the point where I was holding our baby, feeding his bottle, and I was literally just crying, tears dripping down my face. And I felt bad because our little boy was looking up at me and I was crying, and it was really hard. I think probably the lack of sleep when you have a newborn really doesn't help. But yeah, that was the first thing I started, was the crying all the time. I was really, really anxious about the simplest of things, but to me at that present time it felt like a major thing. So like things like obviously making sure the bottles were sterilised properly, cleaning the clothes, changing his nappy, putting his clothes on. You know, I wanted everything just so, and if it wasn't done just so, I would start freaking out. There was little things as well, like we have downstairs in our living room, we have a fire, so my partner will put the fire on. He's got this, I don't know what it's called, thing to light the fire. That was making me feel really anxious. Bear in mind, we've lived in the house for so long, it's never bothered me before, but it really, really started getting me anxious and itchy. I couldn't really explain how I felt, but I just felt on edge basically. Then I guess another thing was when we would go out, I'd always have to get my partner to do certain things, so I didn't really know how to do myself. But if he would shut the car door where the side that our son was, I would have to make sure that he shut it properly. I was really anxious about the door being shut, although I could see on the car there was no light flashing to say the door was open. I had to check it myself. I guess it was almost like a bit more of an OCD thing. But yeah, those kind of things started happening all the time. The things around the house, I would start having to check and be a bit more, I don't know, in my head everything was going around constantly. I couldn't just switch off. I've never really been like that, so to be like that all of a sudden was a real shock to my body, and I guess to my partner as well, because I've always been really laid back, I like to think, and then all of a sudden to be laid back and then to be worrying about all these other little bits that don't really need worrying about was a bit of a shock. So everyone kept saying like baby blues, you know, it's normal to feel this way after you've had a baby, especially as a first time mom, you know, and I was thinking, yeah, maybe it is. But I was feeling so bad because I was getting to a point where everything felt like a chore. I was so exhausted, although I was having sleep, I was so exhausted, I just lost the motivation to do the housework, to do the cooking, to look after myself. I wasn't interested in having a bath. My partner was like, you go and have a bath, and I'd just be like, no, I'm fine, I'm okay. And if I'm honest, that was the phrase I always used to say, and I probably still do now to an extent, is saying, no, I'm okay. When in fact, deep down, I know I'm not okay, but it's just easier to say, no, I'm okay, than to try and explain how you feel, because you just really can't put it into words what's going on inside your head. It's such a weird, well, even now I can't explain it. It's so weird. You're in your mind, you think one thing, but you want to try and explain it, but you can't, because you just don't understand it yourself. It kind of makes you feel a little bit crazy, if I'm honest, because I've always kind of said now that it's almost like you're trapped inside your own body, because you're in there, you want to be how you was before, but for some unknown reason you've hit this brick wall and you're trapped inside your own body and you can't get out. No matter what people are saying to you and trying to help you, you just want to do it on your own, but you can't, because you're stopping yourself. So yeah, my partner obviously kept saying to me, you know, it might be baby blues, you know, let me do more things. It was really helping me, which is great. You know, my partner's parents are really supportive, really helping me, and so are my parents as well. My parents don't live locally to me, so it's a lot harder, I think, especially as a first-time mum. If your mum's still alive, you still want your mum around. My parents don't live here, so I really struggled with that, and I guess I did want my mum a little bit more than I could see her, really. So one time I was at my parents', obviously took our son with us, or with me, stayed over, and it was a little thing, like for example the bottle machine where we make the bottles from, the Tommy Tippy machine, the filter are completely gone. For me that was a major, like, whoa, what are we gonna do? Like, I started freaking out, started crying. I was like, oh my god, I haven't got a filter with me, what are we gonna do? Blah, 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 blah. My parents were like, don't worry, just use a kettle like, you know, people used to before these machines. It'd be absolutely fine. You still got your steriliser machine. But in my head, because I hadn't got a filter, I was freaking out, like, oh my god, like, what am I gonna do? And yeah, that was like one of the things that tipped me over the edge that day. So yeah, the same day that happened with the machine, I went to go and purchase a pushchair. Just a nice fold away one that's compact, easier when we're travelling to different people's houses to use. So yeah, I went and purchased this pushchair, kind of, you know, looked at reviews. They're a mix, like most things are. And yeah, got the pushchair, opened out the box, and it looked like it had been used. There was a few other things wrong as well. And to be honest, because I paid a lot of money for it, like you do expect, it's brand new, you're buying it from a store, and because there was things wrong with it, I started freaking out, and that, along with the bottle machine, completely tipped me over the edge. And if I'm honest, my parents have probably never seen me like that. I was a completely different person. I was crying, like, hysterically. You know, I was panicking that I hadn't got a pushchair to take our son out in while I was at my parents', worrying about the machine, you know, everything. Those two things completely flipped me. And looking back now, I just think, what on earth was I thinking? Like, crying over this. Like, my parents were helping me. We were going to solve the problems. They were solved. It was absolutely fine. But in my head, I literally just exploded and I couldn't control how I was feeling. Since having our son, I've been very anxious about going out and about. I think more so when he was a newborn. I was very anxious about taking him out on my own, driving with him in the car, getting the pushchair in and out of the car, loads of different things really. And yeah, I kind of got to a point where I wasn't going out, or I'd make excuses as to why I wouldn't go for a walk that day, or go to one of our groups, go and take him to get weighed. And yeah, I always found excuses as to why I wouldn't step foot out of our door. I struggled a lot with getting to the front door and like preparing myself mentally, go out for a walk or just go to the shop to get milk or something. I would get to the door and I'd kind of freeze, and then I would freak out, kind of, I guess, not have a full panic attack, but freak out and then shut the door and come back in, because I just physically myself, I couldn't do it. Feeling like I'm getting a bit emotional about talking about this, but it's one of the hardest things I've kind of had to go through, to be honest, because I've never felt anxiety or depression before. To suddenly have it and not know how to deal with it has been really hard. So eventually, after a lot of close family and friends, were talking to me and asking how I was feeling and stuff, and giving them all these things that I was worried about and anxious about, not sleeping properly, or sleeping too much, not looking after myself. I eventually, out of really good persuasion from my parents, well, my mum in particular, and my partner, eventually plucked up the courage to go and see a doctor. Now, I don't know if anybody else has ever been in that situation before, but it's one thing kind of admitting to yourself that you need help and you need to potentially have medication, but it's another thing going to a doctor and asking for help. I think that's really hard to really open up to somebody, especially you don't know, to really open up and say how you feel. So I obviously, like I said, went to the doctor, and then told him how I felt. I really didn't want to go on medication. I was completely against it. I kept saying, no, I don't want to be on medication, anything but this. I just, I don't want to be on anything if I have to. I hate putting stuff into my body, if I'm honest, like medication wise and stuff. I'd rather not, even when I have period pains or I have a headache. I don't take painkiller and stuff like that unless I really have to. But yeah, so it came to a point when I was chatting to the doctor that they perhaps said it might be an idea, because of how high my anxiety was, to go on some medication to see how I got on. Now, I don't know if anybody has ever been on antidepressants. It's probably a lot of people, but it takes about 2 weeks to fully get in your system, and the side effects aren't great on most of them, or if not all of them. And they're quite scary when you read the side effects, which I advise you not to do because it completely freaks you out. So yeah, excuse me, my nose is running now after crying a little bit. I'm gonna have to have some coffee because this is really hard. So I was prescribed some medication. I really can't remember the name of what they were called, because as medication goes, they're all random long names you can never pronounce. But yeah, I was prescribed these certain tablets. They were like a 50 milligrams, so they're quite a high dosage. But I was advised that they were the most common one that people start on. So I was like, okay, whatever, I'll try them. Really nervous about taking them, but I took one. I think it was in the evening I took it. But yeah, the side effects weren't great. I was hallucinating in my sleep. I was shaking that much that I was really struggling to hold our son and feed him and like pick him up from his cot. I was physically shaking going down the stairs. It almost felt like I was drunk, but like all day. It was a weird feeling. I had a headache. Pretty much all every symptom, side effects on the paper, I got basically. So I decided myself to stop taking that tablet. I didn't speak to the doctor. I left it probably about another 3 weeks before I actually spoke to another doctor. Ooh, excuse me. So yeah, so after getting another tablet prescribed to me, I was also put on the list for CBT therapy, and then the new tablet that I started taking was a lot lower dosage. It was a 5 milligrams, and then I started taking that in the December of last year. So yeah, since then I have been on this antidepressant. I have had to up my dosage slightly to 10 milligrams just to really help me with my anxiety and different other things I've been feeling. But I can honestly say that it's made me feel a lot better. I don't cry as much as I used to, which is great. I don't feel as anxious, although I do tend to have really good days and bad days like anybody else. But yeah, so I really highly recommend anybody that is feeling low and not feeling themselves to go and talk to a doctor, because it really has helped me, and especially doing CBT therapy as well, because it can help you obviously at the present time, and it helps you in the future for other situations that you may come across, and how to think differently, how to act differently, and notice the triggers as to what triggers you, dipping in your mood. So yeah, so it's been quite a hard road, in the sense of how I feel and compared to how I did feel, but I'm so glad that I opted to go and get medical advice for it. Really hope this video kind of has helped certain people, and if you have any personal things you'd like to speak to me about, follow me on Facebook and Instagram, and also hit the subscribe button to hear more about my life and different stories I have to tell you. Thanks for watching.